Welcome to Listen and Learn English, a sanctuary where your English skills flourish through the power of captivating narratives. If your goal is to sharpen your listening comprehension, absorb new expressions, and speak with greater assurance, you've found your ideal place. Today, I invite you to hear the story of a man who felt his world was unshakable. He possessed a thriving enterprise, a beautiful home, and a future that shimmered with promise. To any observer, his life was a portrait of perfection. Yet, life often unfolds in unpredictable ways. Unexpectedly, this man began to watch the pillars of his life crumble one by one. Gradually, his prosperity faded, forcing him to confront a profound question: what remains when the foundation you've built turns to dust? This narrative is not merely about loss, it is a journey into courage, resilience, and the revelation that a fresh chapter can emerge from the ashes of failure. As you listen, immerse yourself in the language, the sentiment, and the wisdom woven into the tale. So, find a comfortable space, open your ears, and let the story unfold. My name is Daniel Carter, and there was an era when I was convinced my existence was utterly secure. I inhabited a splendid house, commanded a profitable business, and enjoyed the esteem of my peers. From the outside, my life seemed robust and unassailable. I used to subscribe to the belief that once a person scaled a certain peak of success, the world could no longer rock their foundation. I thought that sheer diligence was an impenetrable shield against failure. Reflecting on it today, I recognize the depth of my misconception. A decade ago, I was at the helm of a modest logistics firm in the heart of the city. It wasn't a sprawling empire, but it was prosperous enough to afford my family a life of comfort and security. My daily ritual began early. I'd rise before dawn, savor my coffee in the tranquil morning light by the window, and observe the city's awakening. The streets below were a constant stream of motion, cars gliding, pedestrians hurrying, and the ambient symphony of urban life filling the atmosphere. In those days, that noise felt like an anthem, a reminder that I was a participant in something significant. My wife, Emma, a woman of gentle wisdom and deep thoughtfulness, often cautioned me about my devotion to work. She valued moments of connection far more than financial gain. In the quiet of our evenings, she would settle beside me on the sofa and murmur, "Daniel, achievement is wonderful, but the moments we share as a family are irreplaceable." I'd offer a reassuring smile and promise that things would soon become less hectic. But honestly, I was addicted to the hustle. The sensation of steering a company gave me a heady rush of power and certainty. Our daughter, Lily, was a vibrant 8-year-old then, her imagination a boundless universe. She would spend hours sketching whimsical creatures and weaving intricate tales of magic. Occasionally, she'd burst into my home office, clutching a sheet brimming with colorful artwork, her eyes alight. "Daddy, look what I made!" she'd exclaim. I'd do my best to offer a quick, affectionate smile and a few words of praise before my attention was pulled back to the demands of work. At the time, I honestly believed this was sufficient. I told myself that ensuring a life of material comfort was the most profound gift a father could bestow. My business had enjoyed a steady ascent for years. What began as a small delivery venture had transformed into a comprehensive operation, with a fleet of trucks and storage facilities. I was responsible for 20 employees, each with their own families and dreams, and I carried the weight of their futures on my shoulders. Every new client contract felt like a monumental win. Every successful quarter reinforced my belief that I was constructing an edifice that would stand forever. However, prosperity can be a cunning mask, hiding burgeoning problems beneath a glossy surface. The initial signs of trouble were almost imperceptible.
A major client began delaying payments, something I dismissed as routine corporate bureaucracy. Shortly after, another client sought to renegotiate terms, citing rising transportation costs. I rationalized these as minor squalls that any resilient business could weather. Yet a persistent unease began to gnaw at me. I noticed our operational costs were creeping upward, while profit margins were shrinking. Fuel prices became a volatile burden, truck repairs more frequent, and new, aggressive competitors were undercutting our prices with alarming efficiency. I tried to maintain my composure, but the figures in my financial statements were starting to paint a grim picture.
One evening, long after the office had emptied, I found myself alone, the city lights flickering through the windows. I pored over the accounts on my laptop, checking and rechecking the data. The truth was stark. If the trend continued, we would be in dire straits within a year. For the first time since founding the company, a cold spike of genuine fear pierced through me. When I arrived home, Emma was waiting, the television on but unwatched. She studied my face with a perceptive gaze. "You seem exhausted," she said softly. "Is everything all right at work?" I mustered a forced smile and assured her everything was fine. I didn't want to burden her. But deep down, I knew the world I had so carefully constructed was more fragile than I ever imagined. As weeks passed, the strain intensified. Clients began demanding discounts, and contracts were slipping away. I worked feverishly, seeking new opportunities and solutions. I projected optimism to my staff, but internally, my doubts were becoming a deafening roar. I was learning a hard truth. Success can evaporate far more swiftly than it was accumulated. Then, one afternoon, my financial manager, Mr. Harris, entered my office, his expression grave. He laid a stack of documents on my desk and said, "Daniel, we need to have a serious conversation." My heart pounded as I reviewed the papers. They laid bare the company's precarious financial state. The losses were mounting. Without a drastic change, bankruptcy loomed. I stared at the pages, my mind a fog of disbelief. Years of effort, pride, and ambition, all seemingly on the verge of vanishing. The evidence was irrefutable. That night, as I drove home, the city's bright lights, once symbols of my achievement, felt distant and indifferent. I realized the life I had taken for granted as permanent was on the verge of collapse, and a quiet, terrifying question echoed in my mind. What will become of me if I lose it all? That question haunted me for days. I initially tried to suppress it, clinging to the belief that I could engineer a turnaround. I had built the company from scratch, and I was convinced I possessed the fortitude to rescue it. I began waking even earlier, working later, calling every contact, attending every networking event. I pursued investors with a fervent desperation. Sometimes I'd get a glimmer of hope, a promising conversation, but most ended in polite rejection. The transportation industry was evolving, favoring the lower costs of our new competitors. The pressure became a physical weight. The company's bank account was depleting rapidly. My employees, many of whom had been with me for years, wore their anxiety in their eyes. Their trust in me made the situation unbearably painful. One day, I called a company-wide meeting. 20 people gathered around the long table, their faces expectant. I felt a crushing weight in my chest. These were dedicated individuals with families to support. They relied on me. I wanted to offer a reassuring promise, but honesty was the only path. I laid out the financial crisis we were facing. A heavy silence descended. Some faces showed shock, others a quiet resignation. I vowed to continue fighting to protect their jobs, even as I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. After the meeting, Mr. Harris closed the office door. His voice was low but firm. "Daniel, our reserves are nearly gone. If we don't see a miracle soon, we're out of options. We're talking about selling assets, layoffs, maybe closure." Hearing the words spoken aloud was a chilling confirmation of my fears. For the next few months, I fought with everything I had. I worked until exhaustion, analyzed market data, and chased every potential lead. But each effort seemed to end in failure. One by one, our remaining clients left. The truck sat idle in the yard. At home, Emma noticed my withdrawal. I was physically present but mentally absent, consumed by numbers and debt. One evening, she gently took my hand and asked, "Daniel, please tell me the truth. What's really happening?" This time, I couldn't hide. I confessed everything. The dwindling contracts, the suffocating debt, the looming failure. She listened without a word. When I finished, her eyes held not fear, but a calm, unwavering strength. "Daniel, businesses can fail. Money can vanish," she said softly. "But we are still here. Our family is still whole." Her words struck a chord I hadn't known was there. For so long, I had tied my identity to my business. The thought of losing it felt like losing myself. But Emma was reminding me of a deeper, more resilient truth. Still, the financial reality was unforgiving. The bank demanded repayment we couldn't make. The end was inevitable. The hardest day came when I had to address my employees for the final time. They gathered in the meeting room, a somber anticipation hanging in the air. With a voice thick with emotion, I announced the closure. It was the only responsible course left. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then a few employees nodded, as if confirming what they already knew. Some looked sad, others anxious. But remarkably, no one showed anger. Several came forward to shake my hand, thanking me for the years we had worked side by side. Their grace in that moment deepened the emotion tenfold. Within weeks, the office was a ghost of its former self. The trucks were sold, the warehouse locked, the equipment auctioned off. The company that had defined my existence was gone. One evening, I stood alone in the silent parking lot, staring at the building. The company sign still hung, but its removal was imminent. The street was quiet, the air cool. For the first time in years, I had no pressing destination. The next morning, I woke to a profound silence. The truth had settled in. I had lost what I thought was permanent. And yet, in the depths of that loss, a fragile, nascent feeling began to stir. Perhaps this was not the final page of my story. The days that followed were disorienting. For years, my life had been a frantic race. Now there was nowhere to race to. I sat by the window, coffee in hand, watching the world move on without me. I was adrift. Regret was a constant companion. I replayed every decision, wondering what I could have done differently. But the questions had no answers. Emma remained my anchor, her support unwavering. "Sometimes," she said one evening, "losing everything isn't a punishment. It's just life's way of clearing the ground for something new, hoping you'll have gained the wisdom to build it better." Her words began to take root. For years, I had been so focused on the destination that I had ignored the journey, the small, precious moments that constitute a life. Now I had time. I began to notice things I had long overlooked. One afternoon, Lily brought her drawing notebook to the living room. She showed me a new picture, a figure standing on a hill, a brilliant sunrise behind him. "Who is that?" I asked. She smiled. "It's a man who had a bad day, but tomorrow is going to be better." Her simple, profound optimism was a revelation. I realized then that my life wasn't over. It was merely at a crossroads. I still had my family, my health, my mind.
A few weeks later, I began exploring new paths, but with a transformed mindset. My ambition was no longer for power or empire, but for meaningful, balanced work. I accepted a consulting role with a smaller firm that valued my experience. It was a humbling change, a step down in title and prestige, but it offered a fresh perspective. I became a better listener, more observant, more patient. I started to rebuild my confidence, not the brash pride of my youth, but a quieter, more resilient kind, forged in the fire of failure. Life also began to fill with small, overlooked joys. I had dinner with Emma and Lily most evenings. We cooked together, watched movies, and talked without the clock ticking in my mind. These simple, peaceful moments became the true treasures I had been too busy to find. Looking back now, I understand that losing everything was a brutal gift. It stripped away my illusions and forced me to see what truly matters. I learned that fortunes can be made and lost, but the core of who you are, your capacity for courage, your ability to learn, your determination to rise, cannot be taken from you. Those qualities become the foundation for whatever comes next. Today, I no longer view that period of my life with only sorrow. I feel a deep gratitude for the lessons it taught me. It didn't destroy me, it redirected me. And perhaps that is the most important message of my story. Sometimes the most significant victories are born from our greatest defeats. If you listened closely, you engaged in a vital language learning exercise. Stories are powerful tools that connect vocabulary to emotion and context, making them easier to remember and use. The most effective way to progress is to consistently listen, repeat, and let these narratives train your ear and your voice. If you found value in this story and wish to naturally enhance your English listening and speaking skills, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Listen and Learn English. Here, you'll discover inspiring stories, listening practice for ESL learners, vocabulary enrichment through narratives, and fluency lessons drawn from real-life experiences. Subscribe and make learning English a daily journey through the power of story. And before you go, share in the comments, what lesson did you take away from the story of the man who lost everything?